Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Reaction Monday, brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Hope everyone had a great Easter weekend. We are with you till noon. Lots to get to on the show today. Titans will have Max Hers at 11 for the final hour of the show, talking Preds ahead of a big one tonight out in LA against the Kings. Parker, how was your weekend?
It was fantastic. Not a lot of sporting events going on, so I don't know how we're gonna fill the 3 hours today. But no, it was a great weekend. All jokes aside, had a great Easter weekend. Ate lots of good food. Got outside a little bit, so I cannot complain.
No, it was a great weekend. I will say the basketball disappointed. It did. I said on Friday I would be supremely disappointed if Michigan Arizona wasn't a good game. And it really was never all that close. Arizona hung in there a little bit after falling behind early, but Michigan pulled away even without Yaxel Lendeborg on the floor for most of that first half. Tough. I was hoping we were going to get game of the year with Michigan, Arizona, and the Wolverines, I think, showed they are the best team in the country, and I expect them to do the same tonight against UConn. The Huskies are good. They're well coached. Dan Hurley playing for his third national title in 4 years, but this Michigan team, I think, is they're the team of destiny this year. They're going to get it done.
Yeah, a machine, and the Big Ten having not won a national championship since what 2000 when Michigan State did it. Yeah, and how much egg on the face do we have saying that Arizona and Michigan was going to be your de facto national championship game, right? I mean, Michigan is a 6.5 point favorite tonight. I think you and I both believe that Michigan is going to cover, but UConn does have the championship DNA, right? This is their third national championship appearance the last 4 years. So this is the real national championship game, but Michigan does appear to be that team of destiny, and I do not see anybody getting in their way, not even UConn and Dan Hurley.
Yeah, I mean, I think UConn is good. Solo Ball was injured as well, but he's not on the injury report. Yaxel Lendeborg is not. So should be close to full strength for both of these teams tonight. I just think Michigan's going to be too much. Again, it's basketball. It's a one-game national championship. This is not a 7-game series where I think if these teams played 7 times, I would take Michigan in 5. But I think it's one game, 40 minutes for all the marbles. I think there's a chance UConn gets the win, but I would definitely take Michigan. The UConn Illinois game went about exactly how I expected it to. It was close, but UConn just had a little bit more in the tank than Illinois did, a little bit more talent. Dan Hurley, he's been there before. Caravan's been there before. That went about exactly as I thought it would. Close, but UConn had the edge. I cannot believe that Arizona didn't hang in there a little bit more. Like, Arizona, they lost 2 games all year long, and they were rolling through the tournament. I really, really thought that that they were going to be back and forth all the way to the end, and it was all Michigan from the word go. And the Wolverines and the Huskies tonight going to be a really fun one for a national title. You talk about the Big Ten possibly winning a national championship if Michigan gets it done. You look, the Big Ten, they won a women's basketball national championship yesterday. UCLA winning their first one in program history. Indiana getting the national championship in football. And right now, the number 1 team in the country in baseball is UCLA. You know, as we talk about the Big Ten, SEC back and forth, the Big Ten, there's a chance that they could sweep them all this year. How crazy would that be? I know baseball, there's a long way to go in that season, but the Big Ten has made a statement this year.
Yeah, USC looks pretty good in baseball too. So, by the way, Dr. Locke has just called in. No, I'm just kidding. No, he hasn't. It's not long before he does call in, I will say. But yeah, no, it's a good year for the Big Ten. It's been a really a good last couple of years for the conference. You know, winning 3 straight in football, having a chance to do that in basketball. Them and the SEC kind of flipped in basketball this year. They got half the field in the Elite Eight. They got half the field in the Final Four, and now they have a chance to win the national championship tonight. So, and doing it in women's basketball yesterday, doing it emphatically
Right.
beating South Carolina as badly as they did. And then it looks good for them in baseball and in a conference that's typically been run by the SEC. So it's good for the Big Ten right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pick against the SEC in baseball with what they've done over the past decade. They haven't lost a national championship since 2019 when Oregon State won it. So I still think the SEC, you got to prove that you can beat them before we actually count it. But
What, six straight for the SEC in baseball?
well, yeah, there was no tournament in 2020, so they've won, yes,
LSU,
6 in a
Tennessee,
row.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So it's been no, sorry, Vandy won in 2019. It was 2018 when Oregon State won. So yeah, 6 or 7 in a row for the SEC. So yeah, it's been all SEC there, but it's been a huge year for the Big Ten. UCLA wins the national title yesterday. On the women's side, Michigan with a chance against UConn tonight. And I mean, overall, it was just there wasn't a whole lot of intrigue to any of the basketball games in the Final Four, men's or women's. The Texas UCLA game on the women's side was kind of close
That was
at
so
times,
low
but
scoring,
like
though.
Madison Booker missed 17 straight shots to end the game. A rock fight out there in Phoenix. Really, the most interesting part of the weekend was Gino and Don on Friday night going back and forth. And, Gino said that Don Staley didn't shake his hand, but there's a picture of them shaking hands pregame. Gino says that's not what he was talking about. I don't know. That was a chaotic final sequence there. And with Gino Auriemma, he's always going to be remembered as one of the greatest coaches of all time in that sport, if not the greatest. I know there's been a lot of people talking about Pat Summitt, and I think you're splitting hairs. Pat Summitt obviously doesn't have as many national championships as Gino Auriemma, but you could argue her impact on the sport is second to none. So I don't want to get into that. But Gino Auriemma going to be remembered as one of the greatest winners of all time in women's basketball, but maybe one of the worst losers too. I mean, when he rarely loses, it doesn't happen often, but when he loses, it usually ends with some sort of controversy like we saw this weekend out there in Phoenix.
It's kind of like the GOAT conversation in the NBA with Michael Jordan and LeBron. For me, I know I'm a Michael Jordan guy. I think the way he went about his work ethic and kind of his mentality on the game is really, there's not anything like that. I mean, you can make the argument for Kobe Bryant too, but Kobe Bryant doesn't necessarily have the stats and the rings as well to back up, what Michael Jordan did. Still a phenomenal player, and his legacy is always going to be remembered. But for the women's basketball thing with Gino and Pat, sure, Gino does have more, but Pat Summitt, everything she did with class. And with Gino, the way that he acted after the game, I mean, he just made a complete fool of himself.
Yeah, and it started with that mid-third or end of the third quarter interview he did with Holly Rowe, and not safe for work. We can't repeat what he said, but he got a couple violations there with some 4-letter words. Said that Don Staley is calling the officials names that should get her teed up, all this kind of stuff. So it started while the game was still going on, and of course ended with that kerfuffle over the scorer's table at the very end of the game. But South Carolina advanced to a third straight national championship game before being blown out by UCLA. On the men's side, of course, we had the 2 games on Saturday night. UConn was able to skate past Illinois, and then a blowout win for Michigan over Arizona, setting up tonight's national championship game. We'll preview that game more in depth coming up next. Titans talk coming throughout the show. There was a very interesting take about Jeremiah Love as a top 10 pick. I want to get to that later on. And I did mention Max Hers from Preds Radio going to join us for the final hour as the Preds get ready for, as we say every game, the most important game of the season tonight out in LA. Currently tied with the Kings for the last wildcard spot. We will have Max on from 11 to noon to talk all things Smashville. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to join the conversation, you can text or call. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I will say, 5774 on the text line asked, do any of the 1025 guys talk baseball? Trying to figure it out. We do sometimes. We're not going to talk a lot of baseball today, but tomorrow, Tony Tuesday with Nick Frazier. We will get into some baseball as we always do with Dr. Crane. So we do talk baseball. Usually it's on Tuesdays with Nick Frazier, who is our baseball guy. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. We will keep talking about tonight's national championship game between Michigan and UConn coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly off and running on this Monday morning. Next man up, 1025 The Game. We'll get to hear this song a few more times tonight. National championship game, Michigan and UConn out in Indianapolis, 7:50 Central Time tip. At least that's what they're saying. So probably more after the 8 o'clock hour. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. We will hear one shining moment tonight as well. Should be a fun little collage of the big moments from the tournament. There's been plenty of them. Not really in the Final Four on Saturday. UConn able to win, not handily, but comfortably over Illinois. And then Michigan just put it on Arizona for 40 minutes, and the Wolverines advance to the national championship game. Michigan has come up just short of winning these national titles over the past few years. I remember back to Villanova. I believe it was Jay Wright's second title. It was post Chris Jenkins, but they blew out Michigan in the title game back in like 2018, 2019, somewhere in there. So Michigan's been in this spot before, obviously a while ago. Different coach, different team, but trying to finally get over the hump and bring home a national title to Ann Arbor. And for UConn, they've been here much more recently. Won 2 national championships in the last 4 years, trying to make it 3. I saw that Alex Caravan is now 17-1 in the national in March Madness in his career, which is just crazy.
And the one loss coming to Florida, who won the national championship.
Right.
And they gave them everything they wanted.
So UConn trying to pull off some history tonight. I think Michigan is just going to be too much to handle. And we were talking about this before we came on the air, Parker. It wouldn't surprise me if Michigan wins this game by 10, 15 points. UConn's really good. Like, there's a reason UConn is playing in this game, but Michigan has been a class above pretty much everybody they've played in this tournament. I really struggle to see UConn being able to keep up with this Wolverine squad.
Yeah, and again, UConn has the championship DNA. They just keep winning the games that they're not supposed to win. And they showed a graphic during one of the pregame shows. I believe it was on TNT before the Final Four started with UConn and Illinois. UConn was, out of all the Final Four teams, they were dead last in the major shooting metrics, but yet they still keep finding ways to win this game. So you're not going to count them out necessarily. Michigan opened up as a 7.5 point favorite. That line has dropped to 6.5. But just seeing what they were able to do to Arizona, the fact that they had a 30-point lead on what we believe were the 2 best teams in the country pretty much all year long, they did that without Yaxel Lindenberg, and they did that without their backup point guard. And they still had their way with Arizona. So I believe that they are going to cover tonight.
Yeah, I mean, with how good Michigan and Arizona had been, and I picked Arizona going into that game. If you told me that Lendeborg would miss most of the first half, I would have said, man, Arizona is going to be in a really good spot heading into the second. And it just wasn't close. Hey, that Michigan team is good. They are well coached. They're complete. And the fact that without the Big Ten Player of the Year and really the guy that makes it go for them, that they were able to manhandle Arizona like that, I struggle to pick against the Wolverines tonight. I think they're going to win. I think it could be big. I do. UConn, they've got the tournament DNA, the championship DNA, and I think they can hang in there. I just think Michigan is going to be overwhelming at some point. But still, with Dan Hurley, you've got to give him credit. Like, I mean, getting to the national title game in 3 out of 4 years. And like you said, the only year they lost to the eventual national champions in Florida. So this is a team that has proven they are a championship level team every single year under Dan Hurley. And even if they come up short today, this is still a ridiculous run from the Huskies over the past half decade.
And Alex Caravan has the chance to do something that's never been done before, and that's win 3 national championships as a player. This is making 3 Final Fours out of the last 4 years. I don't even if UConn gets swept tonight by Michigan, Dan Hurley's the greatest coach in the game, and there's not a close second right now.
Speaking of best coaches in the game, some developments with the UNC job over the weekend. We talked a little bit about Tommy Lloyd and how there have been some smoke there of the comment that stood out to me ahead of the Final Four was, there's been great coaches at Arizona before me, and there will be good coaches at Arizona after me. Like, it just felt like that was a strange thing to say when your name is being floated out for the UNC job. Well, after the game, it was announced that Tommy Lloyd is going to be coming back to Arizona. He was offered a market-setting deal from North Carolina, but decided to turn it down. So that is now 3 coaches who have gotten extensions because of this North Carolina job. Lloyd, Nate Oates just got extended with Alabama, and of course, right here locally, Mark Byington with Vanderbilt. Although I am seeing some national writers, Seth Davis is the one that stands out, still saying that he thinks Byington is in play for North Carolina. I understand that North Carolina has the money that, you know, if they have to pay a little bit more of a buyout after he was extended, then yeah, I guess they could do it. But it seems like the ship has sailed there, right? Like Mark Byington, you don't sign that extension unless you're ready to make a long-term commitment to Vanderbilt. He's also been going and doing media, wearing Vanderbilt stuff, talking about his team and his players and all. Like, I don't see Mark Byington doing all of that if there was any doubt that he was going to be back as the head coach on West End next year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And in this day and age, like obviously you're gonna have your traditional blue bloods, like your Dukes, your North Carolinas, your UConns, your UCLA's, Kentucky's. But in this day and age of college basketball, I can't blame Dusty May. I mean, he's on the verge of winning a national championship with Michigan, and he could go on to win several more. Tommy Lloyd got Arizona back to the Final Four for the first time in over 25 years. So you're already doing a good job with the job. And Arizona and Michigan are not bad jobs
right,
whatsoever.
You can win national titles
exactly.
at those jobs easily.
So there's no reason to move. And I know it's North Carolina, but there's no reason to move unless you absolutely have to. And there's no pressure to do so. I think it's just really interesting because it just seems like it keeps coming back to Billy Donovan. And
yeah,
he said that he was going to make a decision after the Bulls season ended, but it seems like there's pressure on him to make a decision before that point. So I'm interested in that.
Yeah, and that's with the schedule of college sports these days, your roster building is going on over the next 2 weeks. Like that is how you are going to build your team in college basketball in this year, in this age of college athletics. The transfer portal is everything, and it opens up tomorrow, and you got 2 weeks to go build a roster for next year. I know that you can, like, guys have to just enter the portal in that 2 weeks, but usually it works pretty quickly. And for North Carolina, I do struggle to imagine that they're just going to be like, okay, cool. We'll wait it out and you finish off your season with the Bulls. And if the portal passes us by, it passes us by. No, that's not the North Carolina way. They're going to need an answer at some point. I find it funny the way these writers are still saying like, oh, well, North Carolina, they're going to shoot their shot, but Mark Byington's still there. No, Mark Byington just signed an extension too. I don't see him leaving. North Carolina is going to get a good coach, right? Like it's North Carolina. They're going to get a good coach. But I do think that the appeal of those big brand schools is lesser than it used to be. Like 15 years ago, the Alabama job in football, the North Carolina job in basketball, those were jobs that you couldn't say no to because their resources were so much larger than yours. And it felt like there were only a handful of schools that could actually go win a national championship. That's just not the case anymore. The resources are, the playing field is so much more level across the power conferences now that, yeah, you're right. Like Tommy Lloyd at Arizona in the Big 12, he can go win a national championship at Arizona and doesn't have the pressure. Like Arizona is a basketball school, but the pressure from the athletic department, from the fans, isn't going to be as big at North Carolina, where if he goes there, he's expected to bring a national championship back probably within the first 5 years. At Arizona, if he keeps doing what he's doing right now, that's going to be good enough, and he's going to keep getting paid top of the market money. I think that the big brand jobs are less attractive to these coaching candidates now because the resource discrepancy isn't quite as big, but the expectations are so much different when you go to one of those big brand blue blood schools.
Yeah, that's just the way NIL and transfer portal has flipped everything on their head. I think about this all the time. What Indiana did to Alabama in the Rose Bowl this year should have never happened considering the history of college football. But you just won Curt Cignetti just won a national championship in Indiana. And if let's say hypothetically the Alabama job becomes open, Kurt Cignetti's not leaving Indiana.
Right.
5 years ago, you would have left Indiana in a heartbeat to go to Alabama. That's just not the case anymore. If you can win a national championship where you're at, which if Indiana can do it in football, a lot of other programs can do this too.
Yeah.
So, if you can win a national championship, if you're Tommy Lloyd and you're this close to winning one at Arizona, you're Dusty May, you're about to win one at Michigan, or at least we think he is. There's no point in leaving.
No, I mean, it's exactly that of these coaches are already close to winning national championships. And yeah, you might get a little more money, a little more buy-in at North Carolina, because that's all they care about out there on Tobacco Road is like, can we be the elite program in college basketball? North Carolina doesn't like seeing Duke be a 1 seed every year and then be a 6 seed or what I mean, even the last few years, they've been like a 10 or an 11 seed. Last year, they barely got into the tournament. North Carolina, yes, there's going to be a little bit more resources for you there than at Arizona or at Michigan. But is it worth it for the expectations like Kalen DeBoer has? I think if Kalen DeBoer could go back, he would have loved to stay at Washington. He played for a national championship at Washington, and that's good enough for Huskies fans. More than good enough for Huskies fans. At Alabama, he's won 18 games over 2 years, and he's on the hot seat heading into year 3. It's like that's kind of what it is with these blue blood schools in football and in basketball. Does the additional resources that you're getting, how little it may be, make up for the expectations of if you don't win a national championship, you are a failure? And I think you're seeing coaches say, hey, I'm going to leverage your offer against my school. I'm going to make myself a little bit more money, get more money for my assistant coaches, get more money for NIL. And I'm going to stay here where the expectations stay the same and not go to North Carolina where I could be fired in 3 years if I don't end up getting to a Final Four. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Big one tonight, Michigan and UConn for the national championship. Do the Wolverines cruise to a title? They're averaging 95 points per game in the NCAA tournament. Or can Dan Hurley cut down the nets for the 3rd time in 4 years? Going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk more about that game later in the show, but maybe the most disappointing news of the weekend, Parker, and I know you agree with this. It looks like we are going to see March Madness expanded to 76 teams. And we will talk about that coming up next. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to join the conversation, you can text or call. Our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Tee it up with us at the 5th annual 615 Open, May 28th at Hermitage Golf Course. We are once again supporting Folds of Honor to help them fund life-changing scholarships for families of America's fallen heroes. Register now to play or sponsor at 615open.com. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly getting ready for the national championship game tonight, Michigan and UConn. And our coverage of the NCAA men's basketball tournament is presented by Toyota, Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery, Maple Street Biscuit Company, Thompson Machinery, and Pizzona MD. Been a fun tournament this year. Final Four, a little bit of disappointment, but, overall, it's been a fun tournament. We've gotten some good moments, but the worst news of the weekend, Parker, is that March Madness looks to be expanding. It was reported by Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports earlier this week that it looks like expansion will happen and the tournament will move to 76 teams. The way it will work is there would be a new opening round that would feature 24 teams playing in 12 games on Tuesday and Wednesday at 2 host sites. The 12 winners would then join the other 52 teams in the opening round of the tournament. This is the worst idea ever. I mean, I do not understand why anyone would look at the NCAA tournament as it sits right now and says, let's change it. It's not perfect, right? Like the March Madness, there are issues with it. There's issues with college basketball as a whole, but America loves March Madness. And getting a little extra money for some Tuesday and Wednesday play-in games, is that really important enough to change the entire product of the tournament? And I'm wondering how this is going to work. So 24 teams, basically a third of your field, is now going to be playing in the play-in tournament. Is that going to be the mid-major auto bids, right? Like, are you going to make all of the mid-major auto bids play their way into the first round of the tournament? Or are you going to have like the last 20 teams in all have to play a game to get into the Sweet 16? I would guess it's somewhere in the middle. Either way, I think it's horrible. I do. 64 was enough. I don't even think we needed 68, but 76 is way too much. And again, it's one of the, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And March Madness, maybe it's not perfect, but this is not what you need to be doing. Expanding the tournament is something that I think almost universally is despised by college basketball fans. No one wants this to happen. Why is it happening?
Well, unfortunately, what we have to say ultimately is not going to change anybody's mind. But as long as we have a microphone in front of our face, we can certainly complain about it. So this whole thing, we all know why this is going to expand, because of the money aspect. They think that there's more money involved. But I say this all the time. Nobody hates college sports more than the people that are running college sports. You have a perfect product. Nobody's complaining about the way March Madness is set up. When they expanded this thing to 68, yeah, I don't think a lot of people were in favor of it, but it was such a small, compromise that it ultimately didn't really matter that much. You go to 76 teams and you have what you said, a third of the teams playing in the play-in. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. But this is exactly what drive-by leadership is. The people that are making these decisions are probably not going to be around in 10 years, right? To see this product kind of evolve. So they're making these decisions now, and they won't be here in 10 years. So people are just coming by, here, let's do this to the tournament. Let's do this to the tournament. There's no need for it to expand. We all know that. And I don't think anybody wants to see it expand.
Well, and all of these teams that get in, you get in and it's like, all right, we get to see our team play. Unless you're in the first four, you get to see your team play in that opening Thursday, Friday round. That is what makes March Madness great. Yes, the second weekend is always fun, and you crown a champion at the Final Four. But the thing that people love about March Madness the most is Thursday and Friday. And I feel like you're ruining it, because not only are a lot of teams that get in not going to even make it to those rounds, you also are giving an advantage to those teams that get a bye. Like, I know that first four teams have advanced. Texas almost went to the Elite Eight this year. But it's like you're putting a third of your field into the play-in. They've got to turn around and go from whatever host site they were at for the first four and go to where they're going to play their next 2 rounds. And now you're playing 3 games in 5 days to try and get to the second weekend for a third of the field. I get it for the last 4 teams in, make them go do that because they barely snuck in. But the 7 or 8 teams that would have gotten a bid to the round of 64 that now are being pulled into the play-in, I just think it's a horrible idea. I think it's horrible. And I also look at it as especially on the women's side of the bracket, like you do see some of like the 13, 14, 15 seeds advance. We saw it with St. Peter's, and I know that it's kind of going away with transfer portal and NIL, but on the men's side, it's much more common to see those lower seeded teams, 13 through 15, maybe 16, actually make a run. The women's side is going to do this too, and they're going to expand to 76. Only one seed ranked below 13 has ever won a game in the NCAA tournament on the women's side. Why are we making this harder on everybody? Expansion is not the right idea. But again, as we're getting on the text line, 2181 says $, $. The NCAA is soulless.
Exactly what it is.
It makes sense. Keegan says expanding March Madness is that sinful greed that was talked about in the Bible. The NCAA is going to get struck down.
Money's the root of all evil. Absolutely.
Jeremy in Clarksville says greed has ruined college football and basketball. I mean, I agree, and it's
I don't think it's ruined. But here's what I'll say, Jake. You know what National Signing Day used to be in football? It used to be like the equivalent of what the NFL draft is to NFL fans. That was what signing day was to college football fans.
Yep.
Now, if I were to just walk up to you on the street and ask you, what day was signing day this year? You probably couldn't tell me.
Yeah, it's sometime in December.
So it's removing a layer. All it is it's peeling back a layer of what makes the sport so special. Now people are not as hardcore about following recruiting as they used to be. I'm certainly not that way. So with the college basketball thing, with NIL and transfer portal, and granted it's a 2-year sample size, we didn't have as many upsets this year, right? We had High Point over Wisconsin, and that was pretty much it.
Yep, that was the only 12-seed or higher that won a game.
You're removing a layer of what makes March Madness so special. And there's the argument, too, that you're getting more intriguing matchups in the round of 32 and the Sweet 16. Right. But what drew people into March Madness was the fact that a High Point could go on a run, that a Loyola Chicago could go to the Final Four. And now we don't have that anymore. If you look at the latest bracketology, I feel like a lie that's going to be believed is, more mid-majors are going to get a chance. Well, I'm looking at the latest bracketology. Your first 4 teams in the first 4, Oklahoma, Auburn, San Diego State, New Mexico. You go to the next 4, Indiana, Stanford, Cincinnati, Seton Hall. Only 2 mid-majors are in there.
Yep.
And that's from the Mountain West in New Mexico and San Diego State. And the Mountain West has been great in basketball. There are not a lot of mid-majors in there.
The 12th best SEC team and the 14th best Big Ten team could get in.
You're benefiting a 16-loss Auburn.
Well, Auburn, champions of the NIT, by the way. So at least they backed up their gripe with not being put in the tournament. At least they went out and backed it up and won the NIT. But yes, like, do we really need to see those types of teams in the tournament? Golf My Way on the YouTube chat says we sound like some old papas. He says, aren't y'all like 25? He says he loves the expansion idea, and those 12 play-in games will be highly viewed and anticipated. He says it should be double elimination when you get to the Sweet 16 too. I mean, I think you're in the minority.
I haven't met anybody with that opinion.
Right. I don't know anybody who wants the tournament to expand. So you might be in the minority there. He says there's the cliche sports radio host favorite saying, it's all about the money. It is cliche, but it's right. Like that.
It's true.
The people in that room are not thinking about the fans. They're thinking about the money. So
notice how you never hear what's in the best interest of the players and what's in the best interest of the fans. Those two things never come up in these meetings. Funny how that works.
Right. I mean, they are not going to they're not making these games because the fans are overwhelmingly screaming for expansion of the tournament. They're doing it to line their own pockets. 615-737-1025. Let's go to our phone lines. Kenny the mailman is called in. Kenny, thanks for calling. Good morning.
Good morning, good friends. I'd like to be called the great compromiser on this issue.
Let's hear it, Kenny.
Let's do it.
Yeah, they're bound and determined to add, so they're going to add. But here's the way to do it without really adding. 90% of all the conferences have a conference tournament to get into the tournament. go to the 3 or 4 that don't do it, and the 3 or 4 that some of them just take half their teams, right?
Yes. Sometimes there are teams that are left out. Yes.
Just go and pay a little money for those conferences to have a full conference tournament. Label all of those. This is the play-in tournament or the conference tournament, because that's exactly what it is. You're already having the first round of the tournament. Just call them that and charge 10% more for advertising, because that's what they want. It's already happening for about maybe not 27 or 28 teams, because I know the OVC, I think they only take half their teams or some of them. They could, if they wanted a few more games to show, fund the conference tournaments for all the teams, and we'll label that the start of the tournament. Problem solved.
I like it. Kenny the Mailman, the great compromiser.
The commissioner of college basketball, Kenny the Mailman.
Kenny, thanks for the call. Great stuff from Kenny. He always has great ideas. And, you know, we got people of all ages agreeing on the tournament shouldn't be expanded.
We sound like old papaws, Jake.
I'll be an old papa if that's what it means to say we don't want to
call
change
me whatever you want.
Yeah,
I don't care.
I look at it and say, you have a product that everybody likes. Why change it? And maybe 10 years down the road, maybe Golf My Way is right. Maybe 10 years down the road, we'll back and say it was a good idea. I don't envision that.
So I know there's a whole money aspect involved of this, and clearly you got to make the best decisions. You know, if you're offered a little bit more money, I understand there are decisions, tough decisions that have to be made. But if it over time dilutes the product, was it really worth it?
Yeah.
You could still make decisions that are made in the best interest of the game and still be just fine financially.
Right.
But if you're just accepting more money just to accept more money, but it dilutes your product, eventually you're not going to have the product.
College football playoff is next too. I mean, they didn't get it to 16 yet, but that's coming. And I think eventually 24 and beyond will be there too, because I mean, more games, more TV, more money. 615-737-1025. We'll get to some more of your reaction on this. The NCAA tournament expected to expand. Nothing official yet, but it looks like it will go to 76 teams with 24 teams playing in the play-in round. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game, wrapping up the first hour on this Monday. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Diving into the news that the NCAA tournament on both the men's and women's side is expected to expand to 76 teams. That is the expectation. No official announcement yet, but with the national championship game tonight, it could be coming soon. We've gotten some mixed reactions. Lots of people not a fan of expansion as we expected, but we did get somebody on the YouTube chat saying that he thinks that it's a good idea and people would really be looking forward to those games. I guess I can see that part of it of like, once you're into it and those games are actually on the schedule, people are going to be fine with it. I think you are watering down, diluting the product for absolutely no reason. Adding another 8 teams to this tournament. Didn't this past year and how weak the bubble was and all these teams basically just trying not to make the tournament. Every team that had a chance to play their way in lost and lost bad. So I just think you're diluting the product by letting teams in that probably don't deserve to. Maybe there are years where 76 teams deserve to be in the field, but I think there are a lot more years where it's like, all right, 55 or 56 probably deserve to be in, and you'd be letting in 20 teams that really aren't going to make much of a difference in this tournament. So I'm not a fan of it. Let's get to more of your reaction. Go to the phone lines. Adam in Portland is called in. Adam, thanks for calling. What you got?
Well, it's just, I don't even like the first 4, to be honest with you. I thought I would because I like sports and I like more sports, but I'm never interested in it, So I don't know, man. Until it's actually like, the round of 64 and it kicks off, I really don't care. So I'm with you. I think dilute is a good word for it. I do have a question for you though, Jake, since you're the women's college basketball guy.
Yeah.
What the hell's wrong with Gino? Like, why did he slip out like that? Like, I've always liked Gino. Like, I think you can go on YouTube, pull up. He knows how to speak to young people. But him losing his mind the other day really, like, I don't know what's wrong with this guy. So I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. For Gino, he is, as we said earlier, he is going to go down as one of the great winners in this sport, but I think he's also going to go down as one of the worst losers. He doesn't lose very often, but when he does, I think he struggles with it, and the frustration, he can't control it. And I do hate it because it did take away from what was an unbelievable performance by Don Staley's South Carolina team. That's a UConn team that, yes, they played a very weak schedule in the Big East. They did play some tough non-conference games, but they were undefeated, and they were the heavy odds-on favorite to go back-to-back. And South Carolina shut them down for 40 minutes. That's what we should have been talking about. And because of Gino's antics, we were talking about the scuffle at the end. I don't want to say scuffle. There was nothing physical about it, but the exchange of words in the handshake line, and then Gino not shaking the hands of everybody and just going into the locker room after the game. I agree with what Adam said. I think he is a very well-spoken person. I think he is a good voice for women's basketball. I just think he hates losing, and sometimes he spirals a little bit when things don't go his way. So it was a tough scene at the end of that game, but we'll see. UConn, I'm sure, is going to be back in a similar position next year. They've only missed one Final Four since 2008, so we'll see if he can reload for 2026, 2027. But back to the expansion. Adam said that he's not a huge fan of the first 4. I agree. Now, maybe depending on how they structure this, maybe there's a way that this ends up adding 2 days of the chaos to March Madness. I just don't know. When they say they're adding, 20 teams? Or no, excuse me, it's 4 games. So they're adding 16 teams to the first round, the play-in round of the tournament. What teams are those? Like, that's what I need to know. Now, if this is a way to get mid-major teams more win shares of the tournament, like, I guess that's a reason to do it. Like, you let all of the 15 and 16 seeds play in this opening round. That way, those teams that very rarely would actually win a game in the tournament can maybe get a win, and they can get that money back for their conference. Like, I don't know if that's the way they'd format it, or would it be the last 20 teams in would play in this opening round? So it's basically just a bunch of SEC and ACC and Big Ten teams going at it. I don't know. It's going to depend a lot on how it's formatted, but I just know that outside of a few people here and there aren't many who are on board with the expansion of the tournament. And it looks like it's going to be announced coming up shortly. 615-737-1025. Before we wrap up this conversation, let's go back to our phone lines. Dr. Locke has called in. Good morning, Dr. Locke. What you got for us?
Good morning, fellas. I hope you guys enjoyed that lead pipe Dr. Locke special. Michigan winning by 10 points. You know, if somebody said, if Dr. Locke says a mouse can tow a U-Haul trailer, load them up. That was easy money. What'd you think about that game?
I was shocked that it was not closer. I was, but you also picked your Big Ten team in Illinois. We told you UConn, so it was a 1-1 night for Dr. Locke.
I said go easy on that game, but I did actually, if you remember, say load up.
You did.
Really load up on the second.
You did. I asked you what's deeper, your Big Ten love or your hate for Michigan, and you said your wallet was deeper. Go Michigan. So I will give you credit for that.
All right, hey, here's the real thing, and this is something we do need to talk on. What is going on with the injury situation? I've read so many different. If you know for sure, let me know, because that's going to depend where I go. Tonight, if everybody says Michigan, and now everybody is a believer. They weren't a believer. Now Michigan's going to win by 20 points. Not so to go Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. UConn's been there before. They're tested. There's something to be said for a team that's been there 3 out of 4 years. But I think that solo ball is more critical to how UConn goes than Joseph is to Michigan. So which injury is worse? I think both of them are going to try to go. Who's going to be in better condition to go?
Neither.
And now you guys can help Dr. Locke out.
Yeah, neither of them are listed on the injury report. So both are going to play, but you're right. I don't know whose injury is worse or if there's any limitations on Lendeborg or solo ball. So that's something that we'll have to play out during the game, but both are going to be available based on the injury report.
I say take UConn in the points.
All right. There you go. There's your Dr. Locke pick. Thanks for the call. Lots of fun in this first hour talking college basketball. We'll get back into the national title game later in the show, but let's talk Titans coming up next. We are just over 2 weeks away from the draft. We are counting down the days to the opening round of the NFL draft in Pittsburgh, and there was an interesting take this weekend about Jeremiah Love specifically, and I want to talk about that in hour number 2, along with some of the pass rushers as well and how they fit into Robert Saleh's scheme. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Second hour on this Reaction Monday. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Lots of college hoops talk in the first hour. We will talk more about the national title game later in the show. Max Hers is going to join us at 11 for the final hour, talking all things Predators as the Preds are on their West Coast road trip back in LA tonight. Late puck drop, 9:30 to take on the Kings. And as we say every week, the most important game of the season. So we'll talk with Max coming up at 11. But let's talk some Titans here in hour number 2. Titans gearing up for the NFL draft. It is now just 17 days away in Pittsburgh. Titans and the number 4 pick, a big story, not just locally, but nationally. And I saw a lot of analysts, experts talking about the Titans and what they could do it for over the weekend. There's a clip of Mina Kimes and Nate Tice that is circulated. We will get into that about Jeremiah Love in the next segment, but I wanted to start with the defensive ends because I think that's where things begin for the Titans in this process. I think if their favorite defensive end is there, and I don't know who that is, if they're there at 4, I think they're going to lean the premium position, the pass rusher who can be a game changer for them. I think that's where the Titans will go. But if they don't have an option they like there, they could obviously go with an offensive playmaker like a Jeremiah Love. But looking at the defensive linemen, last week, as Parker can attest, lots of conversation about Ruben Bain's arm length. And I know that I stand on the soapbox and say that it's a big deal. And there are some people who say, just watch the tape. The arm length doesn't matter. Here was something from Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports that I think is important to take into account here when you're comparing David Bailey, Ruben Bain, Arvell Reese of what Robert Saleh wants in a pass rusher. So there was a tweet to Nate Tice that said, Titans are drafting Bain. I don't see Borgonzi and Saleh letting a legit starter edge go, blah, 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 blah. Nate Tice responded and said, even if I prefer Bain as a player, I'd wager that if Saleh is drafting an edge at 4, they're going to have long arms. And that's something I really hadn't looked back on before of what is Robert Saleh's prototypical pass rusher that he wants to go get on the end. And luckily, Anthony Amico put out there in the comments of this, day 1 defensive ends drafted by Robert Saleh while he's been with San Francisco and New York. Obviously, Robert Saleh is not the one who is turning in the card. He's not the GM. And with San Francisco, he was only the defensive coordinator. But I'm sure he had input in what they wanted for their scheme when they were making these picks. Michael Williams, Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson, Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas. Those were the 5 first-round defensive ends that Robert Saleh teams have drafted with San Francisco and New York. All of them had 33-inch arms or longer, and all of them were elite athletes. And if you're pointing at what that matches up with those 3 defensive ends at the top of the draft, it's Arvell Reese or it's David Bailey. It's not Ruben Bain. That doesn't mean they can't take Ruben Bain, but if you're looking at the historical trends and prototypes that Robert Saleh likes on his defensive front, Ruben Bain doesn't really fit that anyway. Doesn't mean they can't take him, but if you're looking for what Robert Saleh likes, Ruben Bain doesn't really fit that mold.
Yeah, and they're going to ask him to bump inside too. So I think David Bailey is probably one of those prototypical Robert Saleh edge rushers. Now, I still like Ruben Bain, but I mean, that is a good point. Honestly, I haven't thought about Will McDonald, kind of one of those
He's more
longer, lankier style athletes. Jermaine Johnson, a similar build. So I think that is an interesting point. I am excited to listen. I will go back and listen to the clip, but that is something that I haven't thought about. With Ruben Bain, you're going to get asked to bump inside a little bit more. And I see Saleh wanting to go after a true wide 9, somebody that's going to rush the passer, put their hand in the dirt, be able to play off ball a little bit. That's kind of how I see this playing out.
Yeah, I think Bailey is the ideal fit for Robert Saleh. If David Bailey is sitting on there at 4, I would feel really good about that being the Titans draft pick. but it's not guaranteed that he's going to be there, which opens you up to the wild card of what do they feel about Arvel Reese? Because I think Reese is kind of I think there's a lot of different feelings about Arvel Reese around the league. I think there are some people who believe that that you can look past the production because of the potential. But I don't know if that's what Robert Saleh is going to think. I really look at it and say, if David Bailey is there, he fits the Robert Saleh mold. That's going to be the pick. If David Bailey is not there, I don't know what the Titans are going to do. But I think Jeremiah Love would be my pick if David Bailey is gone. We're going to get into a clip from this weekend that has been making the rounds nationally and among Titans fans of Mina Kimes and Nate Tice, who we just talked about, that they talk about the value of a running back in the top 10. And I agree with a lot of what they say, but with one caveat. And we'll get into that coming up next. 615-737-1025. The draft is just over 2 weeks away. The Titans sorting out their options at number 4. Who's going to be there? Who do they prefer? I think it's David Bailey. Then I'd go Jeremiah Love, even though running back may be a luxury pick. We'll get into that coming up next. Again, it is a Reaction Monday here on the program, brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. We are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and you can join the conversation at 615-737-1025. More draft talk on the other side. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025, the game, Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly. The draft just over 2 weeks away. Titans at number 4. What are they going to do? That is the big question. All of our football offseason coverage is brought to you by Tennessee Brewworks. Locally brewed, community-driven. Tennessee Brewworks, the official craft beer of the football offseason coverage on ESPN 1025, The Game. So we just went through some of the defensive end stuff. That's a large part of the Titans draft equation at 4. Bailey Reese Bain. And we came to the conclusion, based on what Saleh has drafted in the past, Bailey looks like the right fit. There's no guarantee he's going to be there. Jets need a pass rusher. They just traded Jermaine Johnson to you, and it looks like they might go with Reese or Bain. Cardinals could go with whoever's left out of those two, which could leave the Titans in a tough spot. And a lot of people point to Jeremiah Love as the guy the Titans would go with. You get a weapon for Cam Ward. A lot of people have him consensus as the number 1 player in the draft. Over the weekend, I saw this clip. Mina Kimes and Nate Tice are discussing the value of taking a running back at 4. And I thought it was really interesting how they framed it, but also that they didn't really take the context of this year's draft class into account. Let's listen to this. This is from the Mina Kimes show over the weekend.
When you guys look at the top 10, do any teams, based on need, the state of their roster, make sense? Because I keep hearing there's no way he makes it out of the top 10. All right. Do any of these teams make sense to you?
Any in the top 10? No. It's not that I don't think Love is worthy of a high pick. It's just that in a team building sense, I would scream at all these teams and say, you have so much more than you need than a running back that I think is a cherry on top to what you have. Even the guys like that broke out and had amazing rookie years like Ezekiel Elliott. That was because of other circumstances of them having a high pick. And they had an amazing O-line with a quarterback at the time, Romo, that turned into Dak.
The Cowboys point brings me to the other thing that gets mentioned a lot, which is like, well, you got to help your young quarterback. We are all on this pod Cam Ward fans, Titans fans. When you look back at the young quarterbacks, year 1 or 2, who broke out, and you look at the conditions, every single one of them, I made a list right now, had either a wide receiver 1, like a legit dude, or, and this is what you would say with the 2016 Cowboys, Dak Prescott, an elite offensive line. Very few of them had elite running backs, to be honest. It's wide receiver, offensive line. And then people say, well, he's a weapon. It's not entirely fair to limit this to EPA when you're talking about receiving. Last year, total receiving EPA, Christian McCaffrey ranked 34th, expected points added, which is basically looking at every single play and asking how much does this get you closer to scoring a touchdown. It's your most totalistic way to look at value. Christian McCaffrey was 34th behind Parker Washington. Bijan Robinson was 55th behind Ulick Ayominor. EPA per play, the highest ranked was Bijan Robinson, who was 85th behind Juwan Johnson. A pass catching running back is absolutely useful. And if you tell me Kyle Shanahan's coming with him, maybe we'll have a different conversation. But by and large, this is not the best way to add value, not just to a team and salary and all of that, but to help your young quarterback. You need receivers.
I've looked at those kind of numbers before, and it was basically the best receiving running backs are worth like a solid tight end or like a number 3 receiver.
Yes.
At best.
He ain't gonna be CMC. Stop it.
All right, that was Mina Kimes with Nate Tice. And I will say I agree with almost everything that they said. And this is what we talked about, Parker, through most of the winter and into the spring. Running back in the top 10 is a luxury pick. That's the type of pick you make, like they talked about when you're the Cowboys. And Tony Romo missed the whole 2015 season, and you were picking in the top 5, not because your team was bad, but because your quarterback was injured, and you could plug and play Ezekiel Elliott, and they went 13-3 the next year. I get what they're saying. But you're not making these picks in a vacuum. You are not making these picks and saying, all right, well, it doesn't matter what else is going on in this draft class. You can't take a running back at 4. You have to look at what the class actually looks like. And I agree with them 100%. A wide receiver 1 is much more valuable to your team and to your young quarterback than Jeremiah Love would be. Tell me who the Titans should take it for to be your number 1 wide receiver. I think the gap in talent between Jeremiah Love and Carnell Tate is enough that the positional value doesn't matter. Carnell Tate, if you're taking him, is that a run to the podium, Malik Neighbors, Jamar Chase type of guy? Calvin Johnson, no. He is not that type of prospect. Jeremiah Love is the type of prospect that you're pretty sure he's going to be a star. I think the gap between those two prospects makes up for the positional value discrepancy that you're seeing. And so I agree with them. Yes, getting a wide receiver 1 or a franchise left tackle, way more important than getting a running back in this phase of the team building timeline that the Titans are in. But who? Like, tell me who to pick, because you can't just say running back's a luxury pick, it's the cherry on top, when you don't have a solution of pick this player because he'd be more valuable to your team. That's the issue with the Jeremiah Love discussion.
Was the Giants drafting Saquon Barkley at 2? Were they in a position to draft a running back?
That was what, the 2017 draft.
Mm-hmm.
So their quarterback was still Eli at that point. I think that at least made it better. Like, let's look at the Giants roster.
But what I'm trying to say is I don't think they were, but yet they still took Saquon Barkley.
Because he was that type of player.
And I think Jeremiah Love, not making the direct comparison to Saquon Barkley, but he certainly has I think he's the best player in the draft, and I think he can impact the game like Saquon Barkley did. So if you're the Titans, I get it. There are questions on 4 positions on the offensive line. And we don't know what Cam Ward is yet. And the receiving core was way less than mediocre last year. I get it. I get all of that. But what receiver out there are you going to take before Jeremiah Love? Now, if Jeremiah Smith was in this draft class,
right,
sure. I don't think there's any argument you take Jeremiah Smith, but he's not.
And I'm looking at, it was the 2018 draft with Saquon Barkley. You had your quarterback, so you weren't going to take, and I guess, they took Daniel Jones a year later. So maybe they could have taken Sam Darnold or Josh Allen at 2. But in that moment, I don't think you had seen the writing on the wall with Eli Manning yet, so you weren't going to go try and replace him at the top of the draft. This year, you ended up doing it the next year. Like, for the Giants, I think you could have made an argument that maybe you take Bradley Chubb at 2 instead of Saquon Barkley. But Bradley Chubb, although a very good prospect coming out of NC State, he wasn't Myles Garrett. And Saquon Barkley was viewed as the best running back prospect to come out in a very long time. I think this draft is so strange because there just aren't elite players at premium positions. You look at the top 10. This is from Todd McShay. He just put it out this morning. Jeremiah Love, he has as the number 1 player in the draft. Sonny Styles, number 2, is an off-ball linebacker. Arvell Reese, I'm operating under the assumption he's going to be gone at this point, but also doesn't really have a true position. Fernando Mendoza, 4, he's going to be gone. Caleb Downs, as safety, is 5. So the top 5 players in the draft, you can't look at them and say, that is a star pass rusher. That is a star wide receiver. That is a star cornerback, a franchise left tackle. Those guys just aren't there in this draft. There's a lot of really good starting level players in this draft, but there aren't those blue chip. A couple years ago, Joe Alt, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors. I would take all of those guys as prospects over Jeremiah Love if they were in the same draft, but they're not. And that's the argument there of Mina Kimes and Nate Tice. I get what they're saying, and they're right, that when you're building a team and you have holes to fill, the Titans don't have a long-term solution at left tackle. They don't have a wide receiver 1. They don't have a long-term cornerback solution, although you have some Band-Aids in there this offseason in free agency, and you don't have a star pass rusher. Those are holes that need to be filled, but you have to look at the draft and the actual prospects that are in this draft class and not just tell me, well, a wide receiver would be more valuable than Jeremiah Love, or a left tackle would be more valuable than Jeremiah Love. Yeah, I get it. I understand that. Tell me who to pick, because there isn't a guy that jumps off the page and you say, that is a franchise left tackle. That is a star wide receiver 1. And when you don't have those guys, I'm okay taking the guy that you think is a surefire star, even if it's at a position that is not considered as valuable when you're building your team.
Yeah, with Francis Mauigoa and any of the Utah tackles, Spencer Fano, those guys played primarily right tackle. and you spent a first-round pick on J.C. Latham 2 years ago at right tackle. You're not moving him back to left tackle, so you'd have to move one of those guys to left tackle. You've already tried that. Now, not saying that couldn't work with these guys, but you already tried that. With David Bailey, there's no guarantee that he's going to be there by the time you get to 4, and there's no guarantee that he's going to have as high of a ceiling as Jeremiah Love. With Arvell Reese, he's viewed as a freak athlete, but more so of a project. Would he fit that Robert Saleh scheme if he can't put his hand in the ground? I think that would be doing a disservice to him. So you have questions with all these guys, but the guy that I keep coming back to, Jeremiah Love, there aren't as many because you feel as good about his ceiling compared to anybody else in this draft class.
I think the closest thing to blue chip guys at premium positions are David Bailey and Arvell Reese. And that's why I think if those guys are there, they probably would be the pick at 4. Reese, I think I would take, if it was me in Mike Borgonzi's chair, I think I would go Love over Reese. It'd be really close. But I think those are the closest thing to premium position, top of the line guys, David Bailey, Arvell Reese. But beyond that, let's say they go 2 and 3. You're sitting there looking at a running back, an off-ball linebacker, a safety, a wide receiver who's probably more of a top 15 guy in Carnell Tate, Ruben Bain, who would have to overcome athletic deficiencies that we haven't seen before. Like, there isn't a slam dunk answer at number 4. We've seen in the past where, like, the top 5 or 6 picks, it's like, all right, we don't know exactly what order they're going to go in, but they're slam dunk guys. That's your blue chip players. They're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in some order. This year, it's not like that. Like, I think 2 through 12 are all kind of interchangeable. Now, do I think that Caleb Downs is going to go 2nd overall? No, but he could. I saw Daniel Jeremiah say this morning he thinks Carnell Tate could go 2nd overall, which is just crazy to me. That shows you that this is not a very top-heavy draft, right? Like, this is not a draft with elite prospects in it. If Carnell Tate is possibly in the discussion to go 2nd overall, doesn't mean it's a bad draft. There's a lot of good players in this draft. There just aren't the top-of-the-line elite, you've been waiting for this guy to come out of school for 3 years types of players. And when you're in a draft like that, I have no problem if you're the Titans taking a less valuable position because you think he's the best player. And I think that might be the situation the Titans are in at number 4 if David Bailey and Arvell Reese go with the 2 picks in front of them.
Which I'm looking at a bunch of mock drafts back here. A lot of these guys have Arvell Reese and David Bailey going at picks 2 and 3. So are you going to go Ruben Bain? Or are you going to go Jeremiah Love? You going to go Sonny Styles?
Right. There's no easy choice. There's not a Joe Alt sitting there where it's like, all right, well, yeah, you might not need a left tackle, but that's a franchise left tackle. You take him.
And I mean, this conversation has come up so many times about the position that Jeremiah Love plays. Well, what position does Sonny Styles play?
Right.
So if you're going to draft a guy that doesn't play a premium position, who do you think has the higher ceiling between Love and Styles?
I would argue Love. And I just think Love, I would take the offensive playmaker who scores touchdowns over Sonny Styles, he may end up being the best off-ball linebacker in the league in like 2 years. But I think the running back who directly helps your quarterback is going to be more important than an off-ball linebacker that, yeah, might be better than some of your other options, but they're just easier to find out there. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Let's give away some tickets. Be caller number 2 at 615-737-1025, and you can win a 4-pack of tickets to the Monster Energy SMX World Championship races at Nissan Stadium on Saturday, April 11th. So coming up this Saturday, caller number 2 at 615-737-1025, a 4-pack of tickets to the Monster Energy SMX World Championship races at Nissan Stadium. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Join 1025 The Game and catch the biggest golf tournament of the year at 5 Iron Golf, located at 202 21st Avenue South in Nashville. 1025 The Game will be broadcasting live all day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. this Thursday and Friday. Stop in and enjoy great food, golf, prizes, and more with fellow fans from start to finish. Don't miss it, only at 5 Iron Golf. Thrilled it's Masters Week. One of the best weeks of the year. And we'll have some coverage about the tournament coming up throughout the week. Also did want to mention, we've talked a little bit about the mass exodus from the Lady Vols women's basketball program. It is complete. Jada Civil just entered the transfer portal, or announced her intentions to enter the transfer portal. So there are no returning players for Kim Caldwell heading into year 3.
I do have 2 years of eligibility left, so maybe I could suit up.
Yeah, you might have to, because Olivia Edwards, their McDonald's All-American too, just requested out of her letter of intent. So going to be very interesting how that works out, because they've only got one player who is officially signed on. Well, I don't know if they've officially released Edwards from her LOI, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Gabriella Minus, I believe, is the only player who is actually signed up to play for Tennessee next year, and she is an incoming freshman. We're talking Titans here, though, as we get closer to the draft, just over 2 weeks away. And the first segment of the hour we spent talking about the defensive ends. And when you look at fit and what Robert Saleh has typically liked on the outside, David Bailey is the most prototypical fit for a Robert Saleh defense. There's no guarantee he's there, which leads you to the idea of Jeremiah Love. Is it a luxury pick? Probably, but who else are you going to take? Let's look at Jim Wyatt, and he just did his tour of the mock drafts, the 6th one up there at Titans.com. There are 30 picks this time that he's gone through. Usually it's been 20, so 30. I went through and counted 12 picks for Jeremiah Love. That is by far the most. So about 40% of draft analysts have the Titans going with Jeremiah Love. 13 analysts have them picking one of the 3 defensive ends. So Reese, Bailey, and Bain. I think Bain has a slight edge there. It's Bain and Bailey at the top with a couple of Arvell Reese in there. But 13 of them have them taking one of those 3 guys. So there you go. 25 of the 30. It's the 4 that we've talked about the most. And the other 5, we've got a couple for Sonny Styles, actually. Maybe even 3 for Sonny Styles. Yes, 3 for Sonny Styles, and 2 for Francis Maui Noah. So if you went tackle, I guess that's possible at 4. But as we expect, it's basically going to be one of those 4 players. I think you can feel pretty good about guessing that it's going to be David Bailey, Arvell Reese, Ruben Bain, Jeremiah Love. And I don't think it's going to be Bain. I think it's going to be one of those 3 players. You're guaranteed to have Bailey, Reese, or Love on the board at number 4, and I think it's going to be one of those. You'd love to have options, like if the Cardinals go tackle, or maybe if Ty Simpson ends up in the top 3. Unlikely, but possible. I think there's a chance you have 2 of those guys on the board for you at 4. More likely it's going to be just 1, and I think that's who the Titans are going to take. I feel pretty good saying it's going to be Bailey, Reese, or Love at number 4.
Yeah, the Jets are the real wild card in this, and I'd actually make the case the Cardinals are as well. That's where the draft starts. But you got to figure that with the trades that the Jets made and everything that's happened over the offseason, that has cleared the way for them to draft an edge rusher. So really, it's all dependent on what the Cardinals do. And the Cardinals could go a variety of directions here. I don't think they're going to go running back just because they already have a lot of the players in that room already. But they could go Francis Mauigoa. They could go edge rusher. They could go a lot of different ways.
Right, which is why this is so hard to project, because you just don't know. You don't know who's going to be available. I think ideally it goes Reese at 2 and then like Maui Noah at 3, and boom, you've got David Bailey and Jeremiah Love on the board for you at 4, and you can pick your poison, whichever one you want. But I don't think that's the way it's going to work out. I think Reese and Bailey are going to be gone, and you're going to have to pick Jeremiah Love or go somewhere else at a less premium position. Here's Thomas from Spring Hill on the text line. I think this is a good point and something that we've brought up before. When you guys said 2 to 12 are all interchangeable, why not look for a trade back with either the Chiefs or the Cowboys and get 2 first-round picks to fill all the holes we have? If you did trade back, what positions would you look to fill first? That I've said it from the beginning. Trade back is my favorite idea, but I just don't think it warrants a whole lot of conversation when you're talking about for the Titans of like who should the Titans take at 4? And you're like throwing your hands to the sky because there isn't somebody screaming to you, that's the pick at 4. Well, if that's happening for the Titans, wouldn't you think that's happening elsewhere? Unless somebody just falls in love with Caleb Downs and wants to get in front of the Giants to take him. And maybe that's the Cowboys. Like Jerry Jones says, I can't let the Giants get Caleb Downs. I have to go get him. I want him. Then maybe that works itself out. I would love to trade back. That's my favorite scenario for the Titans. I just don't see it being all that likely. If the Titans did trade out of 4, and let's say they were at 12 and 20 for the Cowboys, I would love receiver. Like if you could get, I don't think Carnell Tate will be there at 12. It's possible. But if you could get Mekhi Lemon at 12, and then
Jordan Tyson. Well, I
Jordan
think
Tyson's
the
sliding.
Dolphins are going to go receiver
Yeah, so the Dolphins would pick right in front
at
of
11.
Yeah, wide receiver or pass rusher. Like maybe Bain is there at 12 and you took Bain at 12, which I'd feel a whole lot better about. And then you could take like a Denzel Boston or an Omar Cooper at 20. I think edge and wide receiver would be my top 2 options. Trevor makes a point on the text line that the Cardinals could trade. And I did see a little bit of a rumor that popped up this weekend that the Cowboys might want to trade in front of the Titans to go get Jeremiah Love or David Bailey. So maybe the Titans have to worry about that. Let's see. Lenny says, would we be picking earlier if the Cardinals would have not given us that game? If I am remembering correctly, if the Titans lost that game, yes, Lenny, if the Titans lost that game to the Cardinals, they would be on the clock right now. They would be the number 1 pick in the draft and would probably be auctioning it off to the highest bidder for Fernando Mendoza. So, yeah, Lenny, that is correct. If the Cardinals had not handed that game to the Titans, and butterfly effect, you don't know if the Titans lose that game, maybe they win another one that they didn't win later on in the season. We don't know how the rest of the year would have played out. But yes, in a vacuum, if the Titans had lost that game to the Cardinals, they would be picking first overall for the second straight year and likely would have large King's ransom type trade packages being sent their way from all the quarterback needy teams. So that's great to think about too. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you have any thoughts on the draft as we inch closer to night 1 in Pittsburgh, 17 days away. But right now, the Nashville Predators are in a heated playoff race. Max Hers is going to join us at 11 a.m. We will talk Preds for the rest of the show, getting into the huge matchup tonight in LA and much more around Smashville. We will talk some Preds to wrap up the hour. Then Max joins us at 11 a.m. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Oh, I love it. This song, and I know they've been doing the new renditions. Like I think Thomas Rhett is singing the one in the commercials this year, but the original one, it gets me.
Nothing will beat this. The original, Ray Charles.
Ray Charles takes me to Augusta. The Masters starts up on Thursday. I can't wait. We'll talk Masters with Nick Frazier tomorrow. I mean, that's a perfect Tony Tuesday topic. We'll pick some winners for the Masters.
This definitely isn't a topic for Connor.
No, it is not. Connor is not a huge Masters fan, but no, it's going to be a fun week leading up to the Masters, and we got some big hockey going on this week as well. Tonight in LA, second game against the Kings in the past 5 days. The Preds were able to outlast LA back on Thursday night, and now right back over there to take on the Kings, who they are currently tied with for the final wild card spot in the NHL standings. So we are going to be joined by Max Hers from Preds Radio coming up in about 10 minutes. So excited for that. We'll go through all things Preds on their long road trip as they battle to get into the postseason. Right now, the Predators, 81 points in 76 games. Kings right there, same thing, 81 points, 76 games. The Preds have the tiebreaker because they have more regulation wins, and they will have that tiebreaker over the Kings no matter what. Right now, the Preds I guess technically the Predators could lose that tiebreaker, but they'd have to lose out the rest of the game, and the Kings would win out, so therefore they wouldn't be tied. So the Predators, they're going to have the tiebreaker with the Kings. Right now, both have 81 points. Tonight's game could end up deciding who is in the playoffs and who's going home early. The Sharks are still right in it. They're just 2 points back and do have a game in hand. The Blues and Jets both at 78 points, 3 points back. So going to be a fun rush to the finish to see who can get into the postseason and gets the honor of taking on the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. Tonight is the most important game of the season. We'll keep saying it. Every time the Preds play, it might be their most important game of the season. But this one specifically, playing the Kings, according to MoneyPuck.com, if the Predators win either in regulation or in overtime, their odds go up right around 50%. It would be 49% if they win in overtime, 55.6% to make the playoffs if they win in regulation. But if they lose to the Kings in regulation, it drops all the way to 17%. So that is a 40% difference if this game doesn't go to overtime between winning and losing. It is a true 4-point game. If the Preds win in regulation on the road in LA, there's a better chance than not that they're going to be going to the playoffs. But if you lose, your chances go to slim and none with just 5 games left to go in the season. So, we've been saying it for weeks, but Parker, this one really is the most important game of the season to this point.
It really is. And there will be another one next week and maybe even later this week. No, I thought the Preds did exactly what they needed to do in LA and San Jose to get back in that final wild card spot. Still a cluster of teams. You got to obviously go out and handle business tonight, but I am interested to see, are you going to be able to sweep the Kings in 4 days? Two times in 4 days that they played them. Yeah. Are you going to be able to sweep the Kings twice on the road in the span of 4 days? It's going to be fun.
9:30 puck drop tonight, and as Predemption says in the YouTube chat, I'm hoping there's no pregame ceremony in LA that will cause the game to start 20 minutes late this time. Yeah, I guess
they were 10 p.m. puck drop.
They were honoring Anze Kopitar, who became their all-time leading goal scorer, and he's retiring at the end of the year, but it was a 9:50 Central Time puck drop back on Thursday night. Hopefully it's closer to the bottom of the hour tonight. 8:30 pregame, 9:30 puck drop right here on 102.5 The Game. The Predators, like you said, they've taken care of business on this road trip so far. You're coming off that 3-game losing streak against Eastern Conference opponents. You had those 3 days to prepare for this West Coast swing, and despite almost blowing a couple of 3-goal leads in each of these games, you found a way to get the 2 points. That's what matters. They've gotten the 2 points against the Kings and against the Sharks. Now, would you have liked to have those 2 points come in regulation against the Kings on Thursday? For sure. You would be in sole possession of that final wild card spot right now. But you, at the very least, have gotten 4 points in these first 2 games. Tonight, we just went through the numbers for you. It doesn't get much bigger than that down the stretch in this season when you still have 5 or 6 games to go. It's a 40% swing on playoff odds, depending on if you win or lose tonight. you've got to win. If you want to go to the playoffs, this is one you have to win. If you lose this game, you're now 2 points back with 5 games to go, and you're still on the road for a couple more. You got a back-to-back tomorrow night against Anaheim. You got to go to Utah. The Kings, I think they know that this is probably their best chance to put the Preds behind the 8 ball. Preds, same thing. You can give yourself a decent amount of cushion with the win tonight. Let's see. Do the Sharks play tonight as well? They do. They've got the Blackhawks, though, at home. So I would lean towards the Sharks would be able to win that game. The Sharks' schedule down the stretch is pretty easy. Same with the Kings. There's not the Predators definitely have the toughest schedule down the stretch because like the Kings still get to play Vancouver twice. They play Calgary. Now they got a game against Edmonton, but that's why this game is so important. The Predators still have some tough games. You're facing the division-leading Ducks twice down the stretch. You have to face the Sharks again. You've got to face the Mammoth, who are a playoff team. There's not a lot of easy points to be had. Getting this 2 points of cushion over the Kings and getting another win, this game feels like a must-win if you're the Preds are going to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm just fascinated by this stretch of games, and obviously you brought up the point of it would have been nice to have that win in regulation versus LA. Can you avoid the massive meltdown that's kind of been plaguing the Predators? Right, they get hot, and then it seems out of nowhere you have this massive meltdown. And the past 2 games, yeah, you won one of those in regulation, one of those in a shootout. If you have a 3-goal lead, just don't blow it.
I know.
You know? It's really that simple.
It's hilarious. We spent 2 months complaining about the slow starts for the Predators. Man, they just can't get out of the gates.
Now it's the quick start.
It's like,
can you maintain?
Right. It's like now they go up 3-0 or 4-1 and they can't hold on. Now they did win the games. I don't want to take anything away from them because they did win the games, but man, especially these late night puck drops, when they go up 3-0, I want to feel comfortable going to bed, right? Like I want to be, all right, it's 11 o'clock at night. The Preds are up 3-0 midway through the second period. I can go to sleep. That has not been the case over the last couple of games. 615-737-1025. And as Predemption says as well in the YouTube chat, props to the Predators. New franchise record winning streak versus one team, 15 games in a row against the Sharks. And that is also the longest active winning streak of a team against any opponent. So the Preds, they've got one more game against the Sharks coming up at Bridgestone Arena before the end of the season. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Final hour of the show coming up next, and we will be joined by Max Hers from Preds Radio for the entirety of this final hour. We'll talk about the big wins over the weekend for the Preds and a massive game tonight against the Kings, along with much more. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Final hour on this Monday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are thrilled to be joined for the next 45 minutes by Max Hers from Preds Radio out in beautiful Southern California, where the Preds will play a massive game tonight, 9:30 puck drop against the LA Kings. Max, what's going on?
Hi, Jake. It is good to be on with you. Thanks for being flexible with our weird West Coast schedule out here. And we are right back where we started in LA 4 days ago, where the Preds got a big win to start this trip. Then they got a win in San Jose on Saturday night. And they just got to keep going, because all they're going to do is keep playing these teams head to head that they're fighting with for the final playoff spot.
Right, and it's nice. You get to control your own destiny. You're playing these teams that you're battling directly with. So far, the Preds have come out on the right side in their first two games. They'll get the Kings again tonight. We've got Max till 11:45. Going to talk all things Smashville. Let's start with those two games, Max. The slow start seemed to have been solved as the Preds got out to 3-0 leads in both those games. They weren't able to maintain those as the Kings and Sharks both came back to tie it. But all that matters, they were able to get the 2 points. What have you seen, and what's kind of been a roller coaster for the Preds over these two games? Great starts, you let it slip away, but still find a way to get the 2 points at the end.
Yeah, it's honestly kind of exactly what I would expect. Like, you don't expect to be able to hold leads in these games, even big games. The way these games are being played, that game against the Kings last Thursday was as up-tempo of a back-and-forth game as we've seen the Preds play all season. Two teams absolutely desperate and laying it all on the line. And when you have a 3-goal lead over a desperate team, you know they're going to fight back. And the Kings have a lot of top-end skill at the top of their lineup. And Adrian Kempe drove the bus and got them back in that game. And I think the goals later in the game that allowed them to tie it were what was most frustrating for the Preds. I think there was a bad rebound by UC Saros that led to the goal that made it 4-4. And the Preds were pretty adamant, Andrew Brunette especially, saying, we don't think that game should have had to go to overtime for us to win. So I think the last goal is the frustrating part of that game. The Sharks game, they had to hold on and just grit it out down the stretch. And they were up a goal. They went shorthanded. It felt like the Sharks were going to tie it on the power play, and then the Preds got a shorty. So you know the games are going to end up being close no matter how much you go up by in the beginning. Those starts have been huge, but that's the type of game that these are going to be. They're going to be 4-3, 5-4, and that's what they've been so far this week.
Preds have gotten off to great starts, and like you said, these desperate teams, everybody's battling to try and stay in this playoff race, and the Kings and Sharks have made it interesting. Preds have been able to get the wins in both of them to start the West Coast road trip. Back to the Kings game, goes to the shootout, and you talk about that last goal, one of them that I'm sure UC Saros wants back that made it 4-4. But then to stop all 8 chances from the Kings in the shootout, I know the Preds are historically great on the shootout, but to stop 8 in a row and then Vange finally puts one home to win it in 8 rounds, that's a crazy way to end what was a really competitive game.
Yeah, such a high-scoring game and such a low-scoring shootout. Right. In contrast, it was weird. Nobody really got too close even to scoring. It looked pretty easy for the two goalies most of the way. And then bottom of the 8th, Luke Evangelista knew what to do. He went right to the backhand. He was confident. He had it the whole way. So sometimes that's how you got to get it done. That's not how you're going to win a playoff game, obviously, in an 8-round shootout. But the Preds won their most important game of the season to that point in an 8-round shootout. And got to give them credit, because that's how you win a game, and they did it.
Preds have found a way in their first 2 games, and they've got the 4 points, currently tied for the final wild card spot in the Western Conference. Big one tonight against the Kings. In that Sharks game, great start. Philip Forsberg scores twice. And you look around, Steven Stamkos got one. There's a decent chance the Preds end up with 2 40-goal scorers this year. I mean, and this is something we've talked about all year, Max. Your goal scorers have to be scoring goals, and it's nice to see that those guys have stepped up when the team needed them most down the stretch here.
Yeah, and they needed power play production, and that's what they gave them in that game. 2 power play goals in the first period. Forsberg had 1, Stamkos had the other. Forsberg set up Stamkos's goal, and Forsberg stays hot. He's got 3 goals so far on this trip. in 2 games. He had 3 primary points in the first period in that game against the Sharks. So I think they're doing what they need to do, leading the way offensively, to help the Preds build those early leads that you were talking about that they haven't lasted, but they've led you to big wins. So, and the goal numbers look great. Forsberg got 2 to get to 37. He tied Stamkos for about 10 minutes there, and then Stamkos got number 38. So they're both on their way to 40 with 7 games to go. Of course, they can both get there. And those are 2 of the 5 best goal scoring seasons in Preds history, which is really impressive. And two of the 3 40-goal seasons that the team has had before also came from teammates in the same year, Forsberg and Duchesne 4 years ago. So history may be repeating itself here.
Yeah, it's been great to see. Phil has been, not consistently on a heater, but he's been playing really well over the last couple of weeks. And then, Stammer had the power play goal back on Saturday night. Some of the young guys have stepped up in a big way as well. And Matthew Wood has gotten a lot of the headlines. Ryan Ufgoson's coming up. But I did want to bring up Zach Leroux, especially in that game on Thursday against LA. His first goal was disallowed. They said he played it with a high stick, and it was close, probably the right call. But then he was able to come back and made a real goal scorer's goal to make it 2-0. I like the way we've seen Leroux start to step up despite the injuries and having to start the season down in Milwaukee.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a try it and see what happens move by Andrew Brunette to put Zach Leroux on the top line with Ryan O'Reilly and Steven Stamkos heading into these road games. And it's really paid off. Leroux's been a fit there. He stepped up to the challenge. He's been on the line physically. He's been agitating. He was making everybody angry in the Sharks game on Saturday. And he's contributed offensively. And what he needs to do when he's out there with those guys is just win them pucks. Let O'Reilly be the playmaker. Let Stamkos be the goal scorer. And they've rotated a little bit on that wing. I think the Preds have done a good job not being married to their lines shift to shift, whether it's because of special teams or the need to get Halla out there for some big face-offs in Wood's spot. They haven't stuck 100% to the line sheet. And at times when they weren't doing well this year, they were just rolling it up and reshuffling the lines. And now this year, this time they've been a little more situational the last few games, and I like the way they've done that. And they've put Leroux in a position to succeed. They haven't thrown him out there every single shift with those guys, but they've put him out there in spots where he can be successful. And I think everybody's been really happy with how he's fit in there and how he's contributed.
Yeah, you've seen guys really up and down the lineup, depending on the game, have made different plays. On Saturday, it was Tyson Jost. I mean, he was the first star in that game. He had 2 assists in the third period once the game got tied up at 3, 1 on the O'Reilly go-ahead goal, and then he set up the shorthanded goal for Eric Halla. I like the way he's been playing too, and if you're going to be a playoff team, that's what you need. Yes, you need your top guys to play well, but it does kind of have to be different guys stepping up depending on what the matchup needs you to have for the game.
Yeah, Jost is playing a role, and it's his role, and he's doing well with it right now. So that third period, like the first period was all the Phil Forsberg goals, 3 points in the first period for Phil. And then the third period kind of became Tyson Jost's period. He had points on all 3 goals, and that shorthanded goal, I mean, you can just marvel at how well that worked out. A steal, he skates it up. He's just got to lead Eric Halla into an area. That was his only option because he needed to get off the ice. So he banked it perfectly off the kick plate in the corner. It sat right for Halla, who one-timed it in. That was how you would draw it up times 1,000, the way that shorthanded goal worked out. It was one of the most beautiful goals of the season, I thought, especially when you take into account the situation, the game situation, the time and the score. And I mean, it felt like the Sharks were going to tie it on the power play, and who knows from there. And then all of a sudden the Preds get a shorty and a 2-goal lead, and Eric Halla's rolling around, one knee down, celebrating all by himself because Tyson Jost is too tired to even get to him after setting up the goal.
Right. I mean, that's one of those moments, depending on how things go down the rest of the stretch here, it could be season defining. It's 4-3. You're on the road. They've got the power play, a chance to tie it late, and you're able to get that separator that ends up leading the Predators to the win in regulation 6-3 over the Sharks on Saturday night. 615-737-1025. Preds continuing their West Coast road trip tonight. First of a back-to-back down in Southern California, starting with a huge one tonight against the LA Kings. Currently, the Preds and Kings tied for that final wild card spot. We'll preview that game Also, The Athletic put out their prospect pool rankings. The Predators in the top 5. We'll get Max Hurst's thoughts on that as well. Max is with us for a couple more segments talking all things Preds. Jake Lyman, Max Hurst, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Max Hurst, Parker Kelly. Max with us live from Southern California for a couple more segments as we get ready for tonight's caffeine special against the Kings, 9:30 puck drop. Max, do we think it's going to be 9:30 exactly this time, or do we have another 20-minute pregame ceremony like Thursday?
No more ceremonies for Andre Kopitar, as far as I know. I still have no idea why they picked that game for it. It was not their last home game of the season, obviously, because we're back here tonight.
Right.
And it was not the first home game since he broke their franchise points record last month. So I think it was just to mess with the Preds. I don't know. They dumped 1,300 foam pucks out of the ceiling into the Predators' goal as part of the celebration. So, I don't know. It was really annoying.
I was just like, man, I can't believe this game hasn't started yet. And, just before 10 p.m. Central Time finally got underway. Max, before we get into some bigger picture stuff, Adam in Portland on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, asks, what is it with Brady Shea taking some more penalties? Not going to let Yossi off the hook either, but Brady, what's going on with him? They've come at crucial times, so it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and most of them have been on the top guys. Some of them have been really soft calls. I can think of 2 this week that were really soft calls, ticky-tack. One of them I thought was bad was going back on the forecheck last game. He put his hand on, I think it was Adam Gaudet's shoulder, and Gaudet slung himself down. And at that point, you're just begging for it. So I think it's just a product of him being out there a lot and spending a lot of time in the D zone. Some of them I don't think are on him. I think the officiating in the Predators' last 4, 5, 6 games has been pretty much as bad as it can possibly be. And I've been really disappointed with a lot of the calls and a lot of the decision making, and also just like the game administration and the pace of play and the reviewing of the double minor on both ends of an intermission in the game on Thursday. So I've been really disappointed with that. Tonight we will have Mike Lego, who was an NHL ref for a long time and is now an NHL officiating supervisor. This will be the 3rd straight Preds game that he has been the supervisor in person. There isn't one of those at every game, and they've had the same supervisor 3 games in a row. So I really hope that this individual would have addressed like all of the weird stuff that has happened in these games recently and put an end to it. But I don't know what these people are doing when they supervise the games. But yeah, it's I think Shea needs to be a little bit better with some of that stuff, but I also think he's been the victim of some bad calls.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you make a good point too of just him being out on the ice more and facing off against a lot of the top guys on the other team. You're going to pick up some penalties here and there, even though not all of them have been the right call. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you have any questions for Max. Max, before we get into the Kings game tonight, let's go big picture here. The Athletic came out with their prospect pool rankings this week, and they've got the Predators at number 5. This is Scott Wheeler. He even says in the article that he debated ranking them as high as 3rd, but feels like they're an A-plus prospect away from being true cream of the crop across the NHL, but talks about tier 1 prospects. Of course, Brady Martin, Riker Lee, a first-round pick from this past year, Igor Surin, a first-round pick a couple years ago, and somebody a little bit closer to making the team, Tanner Molendyk. It seems like there's a lot of optimism around the Predators prospects, and Barry Trotz, the way he's worked to thread the needle, I think you're starting to see the youth movement making their way up towards Nashville.
Yeah, and the way that Wheeler outlined it in the article was that the Preds got a good ranking because they have a deep pool. It's not a top-heavy superstar at the top pool. It's solid guys who he sees as coming up and making their mark. And this also includes a lot of players who are on the team right now. It includes 5 players who are on the team right now.
Right.
It includes Drew, Schaefer, Svechkov, Kimmel, and Ufko. And and Wood.
And Wood, yep.
So it's not a games played cutoff. It's an age cutoff that they use for this, for who's a part of it.
Gotcha.
So like a lot of this group is already here. And Wood is, unsurprisingly, the highest ranked of those players who's on the NHL roster right now. And I think what he's done in the past month playing center is enough to make this list valid. So I think when you look at the Predators pool, the writer of this as an independent evaluator, what it comes down to, whether you like them or not, is whether you like Brady Martin, Riker Lee, and Igor Surin long-term. Because those are the guys who are going to define this thing, especially with how well Lee played as a college freshman this year, as a true 19-year-old college freshman, not an overager. And we were thinking about it since we just faced Yaroslav Askarov on Saturday, and the pick that the Preds used to draft Riker Lee last year was one of the assets they got back for Yaroslav Askarov. And Askarov still looks raw. He does not look like a finished product. He still has a long way to go, even though he's gotten better. And I think if you're the Predators, you'd rather have UC Saros and Riker Lee. And also David Edstrom was part of that trade, and he's on this prospect list too. So I think if all those guys come up, and even if none of them like blow through their prospect ceiling, I think even if all of them meet the current expectation, especially Martin and Surin, that the Predators could really have something with this current core that they can stick with.
Yeah, and Martin is going to be the one that everybody points to because he's a top 5 pick, and the Predators did pass on some guys that consensus may have had higher to take Brady Martin. But you mentioned Surin, and I think he's the one that I look at the most of. The Preds took him late in the first round back in 2024, and it was a guy that you knew wasn't going to contribute in the near future for your team, but he had a lot of potential. And I think you're seeing with the way he's played in the KHL that he could end up being worth more than where you got him in the draft. And maybe 5 years down the road, he could be one of those top line centers for you along with Brady Martin. And that could be what makes or breaks this prospect pool.
Yeah, depending what you get going forward, you can envision Brady Martin as the 1C and Igor Surin as the 2C.
Right.
And it feels like it was a while ago now that the Preds drafted Surin. It wasn't. It was 2 drafts ago. He's not even 20 yet, and he's still got at least one more season in Russia after this one, where he's playing really well in the top league. But yeah, the Preds took him 22nd after they made the playoffs in 2024. And that was earlier than Surin was supposed to go on the general consensus board. So the Preds had their eyes on him, and I like that. And the way that he has played, he has confirmed that validation so far in a year and a half in the KHL since the Preds have drafted him. And we get to see him in these little bursts in the prospect camp every summer when he comes over for a week in July. It's happened the last 2 summers, one right after he was drafted, and last year after a KHL Gagarin Cup championship when he's playing with 35-year-olds all season. He comes over and he looks like a man at the Preds prospect camp. He's on the puck. He's making plays. He's physical. He's knocking guys over. He wants to hit everybody. I think he could be a really, really fun fit when he does get here. It's probably still a couple years away, and there may be some AHL time even after he comes over to the U.S. But I think they understand what they have and that pick is a hit, as they intended late in the first round on Surin 2 years ago.
The future outlook for the Preds looking brighter. Again, the Athletic ranking the prospect pool for Nashville in the top 5 across the NHL. And although the playoff chase is what everybody's focus is on right now, there is the GM search going on in the background, and that GM going to get to reap the benefits of that prospect pool. Elliot Friedman on 102.5 The Game with DVD last week talked about a couple of possible candidates for the Predators. He mentioned Brett Peterson, who's the assistant GM in Florida, Bill Scott in Edmonton, Scott White in Dallas. Any thoughts, Max, on some of the early names who are being floated out there as Barry Trotz's successor?
I like those 3. And I think you want to talk to everybody, and that's what they've done. They've done what they said they would do, led by Bill Haslam, and Barry Trotz is in there too, as the Predators just kind of cast their net and see who thinks what about their team and who fits where in terms of first-time GMs, experienced GMs, and everybody in between. So I like those guys as a starting point for sure. I would caution everybody listening to those reports that there are going to be people who have interviewed whose names don't come out, and the process is going to start moving soon, if it hasn't already while we've been away.
Right. The Predators said they'd love to have a GM in place by the draft at the latest. And so you've still got a couple of months here to make that happen. But I would guess they'd like to have somebody in place earlier rather than later so that they can go through the entire offseason process of preparing for the draft, preparing for free agency and all that comes with that.
Yeah, I think so too.
So we will see, but that's the first real concrete report that we've seen of some names that the Predators may be looking at in their GM search, which rolls along. But of course, The season's not over yet. Still 6 games to go, including a massive one tonight in LA. Preds and Kings tied for the final wild card spot in the Western Conference. They will play tonight in LA. 9:30 puck drop. We'll preview that game and talk about the rest of this West Coast road trip before the Predators return home to Bridgestone Arena on Saturday. We've got one more segment with Max Hers. If you have any questions for Max, you can get those in on our phone and text line 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Max Hers, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Max Hers, Parker Kelly. Max joining us live from out in California as the Predators continue their West Coast road trip, taking on the Kings tonight, 9:30 puck drop, 8:30 pregame right here on 102.5 The Game. Max, we got a text in here. I know you haven't been over to Morning Skate yet. This is our last segment with Max, by the way. 3425 asks, any word on Nick Hague after he had to leave the game on Saturday?
No word. I'll probably know in half an hour, 45 minutes or so. But they did not practice yesterday, so nothing on Hague. Did not look promising the way he went off. And I've been thinking about what the pairs might look like if Hague doesn't play. And there are a couple different ways they could go with it. I think they might drop Ufko in on the second pair with Perbix because those guys have played together a lot. And I think Barron and Willsby the last two games have shown you something on the third pair. They've been able to get solid 5-on-5 ice time, which you need a third pair that can get some for you. And when Ufko was in there, they weren't really using a third pair. They were mixing and matching a lot. So I think the value of Willsby and Barron together may push Ufko with Perbix. I think there's a chance that if Hague definitely weren't going to come back this week, that they could make a call up as well, just to get some size, and it would probably be Andreas Engelland to fill his role if they did call up somebody. But Ufko's been out. He's probably raring to get back in there. So we'll see what they do. I know it feels like it's like 3 p.m. back in Nashville, but morning skate still hasn't happened here. So, we'll know soon.
Right. These late games, the schedule very different. For us, it's almost lunchtime. Max is getting ready to head over to morning skate for this late night game. And speaking of tonight's game, UC Saros, he went against the Kings back on Thursday. Do you think with this back-to-back Kings and Ducks, going to be UC Saros in net again tonight?
Yeah, even though Saros hasn't been perfect this week, I think you got to ride your guy. So I would expect Saros tonight and Annunen tomorrow. It's definitely possible that they flip that, but I would expect Saros tonight to keep him going. And then Annunen would have a big one tomorrow against the Ducks, who are in a 3-way battle for their division.
When you look at this game tonight, I think both teams have to realize how make or break it feels. I know it's not over if you lose. You don't clinch a playoff spot if you win. But we were looking at the money puck odds of it's like a win in regulation and the Preds playoff chances jump to 55%. You lose in regulation, it could fall all the way to 17%. Do you feel that around the team right now, that this has a playoff type feel in this game, given how much it can sway the odds one way or the other?
Oh, yeah. And it's the third one in a row. So they're living in it.
Right.
They're already at that level. And the players aren't afraid to acknowledge it. They're playing playoff hockey right now. And there are guys on the Preds who have never been in the Stanley Cup playoffs before, who are playing the biggest game of their lives every single day. So I love what it's bringing out of them. I think the presence of Forsberg, Stamkos, O'Reilly, Yossi, Shea, Saros elevates those guys to, hey, we know how this is going to get. We want you to meet us there. And I think the Preds should be really pleased with how it's happened. It has not been perfect games. They've blown leads. They needed a shootout against the Kings in a game where they were the better team. But they've stuck to really good game plans. The game planning has been good. And they've done what they needed to do to win against the teams they're competing with. And Jake, I honestly think it's obvious after watching them play the Sharks twice and the Kings once that the Preds are the better team out of those three. I think it's really obvious.
No, I think so too. I think you watch those teams play, and I think the Preds are the better team. But you're playing on the road. They've been out there for close to a week now. Have to be able to stay locked in for tonight's game against LA. Max, do you? Kind of in the same vein of talking about in these games, there's such a playoff mentality. Is there maybe the opposite of that when you aren't going to be playing these games directly against the teams you're competing with? You look over the last month for this team, and they've beaten Seattle twice. They beat Winnipeg. They've beaten the Sharks. They've beaten the Kings. But the other games against the teams they're not competing directly against, those have been the ones that they've lost. Do you worry a little bit about that once you get past this Kings game and you have 3 games in a row that, yeah, they're around you in Anaheim and Utah, but it's not those must-win type of feels that you have in these games against LA and San Jose?
I hadn't thought about it that way, but I think the way you presented it makes a good case for that. just with how poorly they played against Montreal and that they left a game on the table against the Devils. But the teams they're playing against are going to be fighting for something.
Right.
The Wild are fighting for home ice in the Central. The Ducks are fighting for their division. The Mammoth, you still have a chance to catch them if everything goes really well. They're the first wild card right now. So I think once they've gotten to that level, the only thing that would take them off of it would be fatigue. And I think fatigue could be reasonable later in this week.
Yeah.
Because they've only got one day off between games. They have a back-to-back starting tonight. But it's clear that the rest they had coming into this road trip with 3 days between games has served them well. So as long as they can manage that, I think they can stay at the level they're at.
3 games in 4 days, like you said, and all of them important down the stretch here with just 6 games to go. I think everybody looking forward to those last 3 games back at Bridgestone Arena starting on Saturday. And it's probably not realistic to expect them to win all 5 of these games, but what do you think the Preds need to do over these next 4 days to keep themselves in a playoff position in that race heading into the final 3-game homestand at Bridgestone?
I think they just got to keep the desperation level high. It's brought out their best hockey. They've got contributions from everybody. And the goal scoring has been so incredible to see. Like, they've just shot everything. They've been making plays. They got 2 power play goals. They need special teams to continue to be good, as they have been on the 2 wins in this road trip so far. And I think the 5-on-5 play speaks for itself. Like, they've played exciting games, but for the most part, they've been responsible. And they've been able to get games to the finish line, even when it's looked testy. So I just like the way they're gelling right now. And it's a place where I did not think this team would be, especially with the lineup looking like it is with all the youth and inexperience. So I'm really happy as an observer with how the Preds are playing right now. The thing I worry about is, what does the back end look like if Haig misses time with an injury? I think that is a key player for them in these playoff style games and potential playoff games. So we will monitor that. But I think what they've shown is that they have enough to get this done.
Preds have won 7 out of 10, 6 games to go. And it's always fun when the Preds are fighting for this playoff spot down the stretch, playing meaningful hockey. And tonight, another late one, 9:30 puck drop in LA against the Kings, trying to beat LA for the second time in 5 days and claim that wild card spot all to themselves. Max, before we let you go, we were talking tiebreaker. Preds have the regulation win tiebreaker over the Kings. I don't think that can change. So that could play an important role down the stretch depending on how things go.
Yeah, the Kings only play overtime games.
Yes, they have 19 overtime losses. Is that right?
Yeah. They have now set the NHL record for most overtime games in a season. 31 games have gone to overtime for the Kings out of the 76 that they've played.
That's crazy.
It's just nuts to think about. And I think they kind of fall back on it. I think it's a crutch for them. And I think that's a good thing. Like, if the Preds can win in regulation tonight, that's huge. But you almost assume that tonight's game is going to go to overtime just because it's all they do. Like, every day on the out-of-town scoreboard, Kings went to overtime. Did they win? Did they lose? Flip a coin. But they went to overtime basically every game down the stretch here at the end of the season. So that's what's kept them in the race. I mean, the Preds have their share of overtime losses too, but most teams have around 9. So many have double digits around the Preds in the standings. So it's the way it's set up. So that's I don't know. That's just what the Kings are doing. Like, watching them now, I watched them twice in a row because they played the night before the Preds played them. So I got to go watch that game too against the Blues. Yeah. Like, in that game, they were really tight defensively and they won 2-1 in overtime. And then against the Preds, they gave up a lot and lost 5-4 in a shootout. And then they played the Maple Leafs on Saturday and they won 7-6 in overtime against a team with nothing to play for. So they're just a weird read right now. I guess they're not well coached. Like, they just made a coaching change. I don't know what their deal is, and I don't really want to have to find out. It's just, as long as you beat them today, you can stop thinking about them after this, hopefully.
Right. That's the important thing. Go get your 2 points tonight and then move on. Again, Anaheim tomorrow and then Utah on Thursday to wrap up this West Coast road trip. Max, appreciate you taking some time. Have a great call tonight, and we will talk to you next week back here in Nashville.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Thanks, Parker. See you guys.
Max Urs from Preds Radio joining us again. 9:30 puck drop tonight. It is another caffeine special. Get the coffee pots brewing, maybe get a nap in, and get ready for that one. Kings and Preds right here on 102.5 The Game. Pre-game coverage starts at 8:30. We will wrap up the show after this with some more Preds talk and also a big transfer portal addition, subtraction from the Vols that was just announced over the past hour. We will get into that coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Final segment on this Monday. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly. Big thanks to Max Hers from Preds Radio joining us for the last 3 segments, getting ready for Preds and Kings tonight in LA. Also, the national championship game up in Indianapolis, UConn, Michigan. And they will cut down the Knights. We'll hear one shining moment. One of the best sporting events of the year coming to a close tonight. But as we were just talking about, Parker, what a great sports month it is. National championship tonight, but don't worry, the Masters starts on Thursday, and then NFL draft week comes up we're 2 weeks away from the Monday of draft week. It's just a great time of year. It is.
Cannot complain, for a thing that I don't believe in anymore, a football offseason. We sure have a lot of good sporting events to go around. Final Four, Masters, draft, we got MLB baseball's in full swing.
Yeah, NHL playoff races going on. There's no shortage of things to watch, and it's great. I can't wait for the Masters.
We'll keep us occupied until football season.
Right. We'll talk a little bit about the Masters coming up tomorrow on the show. Nick Frazier will rejoin us for a Tony Tuesday. A couple of news and notes before we wrap up. Adam Schefter just put this out there. All-pro defensive tackle for the Giants, Dexter Lawrence, has requested a trade and will not participate in the team's offseason workout program that opens Tuesday. So I don't think the Titans would be interested there. I think it'd cost you a decent amount for a position that you already feel pretty deep at. More a position that you're already heavily invested in financially with Jeffrey Simmons and John Franklin Myers. So I don't think that would be a fit, even though there is a Brian Daboll connection there with Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen either. And plus, this is a guy that could reset the market too. I mean, he's one of the best defensive tackles in the entire league. So Titans still do have the most cap space, but I don't think it's a likely acquisition.
I think if you're looking at this move in a Titans lens, look at it as whether he signs a new deal with the Giants or he's traded and signs a new deal. You're probably going to have to beat that for Jeffrey Simmons when he signs an extension. That's probably the most Titans link you could find to the situation of Dexter Lawrence requesting a trade. Also, JP Estrella from the Vols has entered the transfer portal, or at least intends to enter the transfer portal. Parker, your thoughts on this? The Vols losing a lot of depth in the front court with obviously Felix Okpara graduating. You had Cade Phillips enter the portal on Friday, and now JP Estrella into the portal. Vols going to have to make some moves in the portal of their own to replace some of the size and the front court depth that they're losing.
Yeah, look, it's not ideal because when you were looking at how this offseason was going to kind of shape for the Vols, you had the hope that Cade Phillips was going to return, that JP Estrella was going to return. Jalen Carey already said that he was going to return. You have Dwayne Brown coming back, who had a terrific freshman season. So that's 4 good pieces in the front court, and now you're down to just 2 of those. So from going to, okay, you just need to add as many shooters as you can in the portal, and getting Tyler Lundblade was huge for the Vols. Now you got to go and add some pieces in the front court as well. I expect this transfer portal to be even more loaded than it was last year. So for Rick Barnes, that shouldn't necessarily be hard, but it's not ideal losing JP Estrella.
Well, I mean, the portal is ridiculous. The women's portal officially opened this morning, and I some of the names that are going in, I'm like, man, like Liv McGill for Florida, who has been a star there for a bad Gators team for 2 years. She's in the portal. You saw NC State, Tilda Triger, their center, who averaged 10 and 8 last year. She's in the portal. So I think we might see a similar mass exodus from a lot of programs on the men's side tomorrow when the portal officially opens. So it's going to be a fun couple of weeks as we see the player movement go on. Tennessee and Vanderbilt both expected to be very active in adding players. But the season is not over yet. We've got one more game, Michigan, UConn tonight in Indianapolis for all the marbles. Are we on the same page, Parker? Michigan's
going to win by 10 or more.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. I feel very confident in saying that. And if I'm wrong, you can come on the air and trash me tomorrow. But I feel like it's going to happen.
I feel less confident about it being a blowout. But
I think it'll be a lot better than Arizona.
But like Michigan is they've dog walked everybody they've played. Like it just hasn't been close.
Team of destiny. That's what Michigan is.
Beat Tennessee by 30. I mean,
so I did some research. They've scored about 94 points per game through
Right.
5 games in the NCAA tournament. The point differential is plus 108. Michigan is not just beating teams; they are beating them into submission. You're going to have a tough, tall task on your hands with UConn just because of the championship DNA. But UConn has been winning games that they're not supposed to win.
Yep.
I think Michigan is going to beat UConn by at least 10 points tonight.
The closest game they've played so far in this tournament, they won by 13 against Alabama. Now, UConn's good, but on paper, I don't think UConn's better than Arizona. And Michigan just won by 18, missing their star player for a decent portion of that game. Yaxel Lendeborg only played 14 minutes. I'm going Michigan.
He's playing tonight.
Yes,
he's playing.
He's playing tonight. We don't know if he's going to be 100%. You know, it was like a knee ankle kind of thing that he was dealing with. So maybe he's not going to get his full workload, but I think he's going to play a decent amount for this team. And no, they're really good. They're really good. I am not going to say double digits. I won't go as far, but I'm going to take Michigan, and I feel good about it. And it wouldn't surprise me if this game is over at halftime. It wouldn't, but I'm going to say that UConn with Hurley, with Caravan, with Mullins, and Solo Ball looks like he's going to be suited up and available for tonight's game. I think they'll stay close. Wouldn't shock me if it's a blowout, but I'm going to say Michigan by like 5-8, somewhere in there. That would be my guess for tonight's game.
So UConn cover?
What's the spread?
6.5. So the line it opened as a 7.5. Now it's down to 6.5.
I think that's about right? Like I don't think it's going to be a game that comes down to the final possessions, right? Like I think it'll be UConn fouls a couple times, Michigan makes some free throws, you dribble it out, you're national champs. I don't think it's coming down to a buzzer beater. But I think UConn's talented enough. They've got the experience that they can stay close. Yeah, I'll say Michigan covers, but barely. Like 90-83, something like that. Although national championship games usually don't get that high scoring. I know Michigan's been putting up numbers on everybody. I'll go a little lower. I'll say like 75-67 Michigan is going to be my pick. It'll be a fun one. I mean, we haven't gotten a ton of great games down the stretch here, with the exception of UConn Duke. The Elite Eight and on really haven't given us many moments. Maybe we get one tonight, but the way Michigan's playing, I wouldn't count on it. Big one.
They're destroying teams.
7:50 tonight should be about the right timing for you to watch the national championship game and then flip over for puck drop out in LA. The Preds taking on the Kings for the second time in a week. Beat them in a shootout back on Thursday. Currently tied for the final wild card spot. We will be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. to react to all of it. Nick Frazier will be with us. We'll talk some hockey. We'll talk some basketball. Get some baseball, some Masters. We'll do all of it tomorrow, 9 to noon. But that does it for us today. Big thanks to Max Hers for joining us earlier this hour. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to 102.5 The Game.